Ted OORBALS, CEO of Biocryptology platform. Actually, in the first place, I've seen that bit of presentation, and after that, I was seeing what our guest is doing. Biocryptology. So, if you're ready.
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank everyone for your attention, although to become after Amazon, it always takes away some crowd. Today I'm going to take you to a journey from us that we took the last 9 years to develop a solution to have a world without usernames and passwords, and to have a world where we can identify ourselves as a person in any online or physical situation. So it started 9 years ago with the development of a physical access device based on your fingerprint. And with this device we created the first step of creating access on events, creating access on high secure environments, but even this device was used to put it on doors or to put it on a vault. But also with this device we started thinking, why do we need all those other things to identify ourselves? Why can't we move over the world by just using our fingerprint or just using our face or any other biometrics to identify ourselves and then to grant access or to confirm my identity? Why is that not possible? Why do we need so many other methods? Why do we need to undergo every time the risk that our identity is being compromised, is being stolen? So with this started our quest, is there a way that we can use biometrics for a full access control? Now, doing so, we developed many things. We developed together with the university in the US a payment platform in Rapid City that just with your fingerprint you could go to the gasoline station and pay your tank of gas. You could go to the supermarket and pay with just your fingerprint. And we created a network with a platform where just your biometrics would confirm any transaction. But it learned us also a very important lesson: the risk of having a biometric central database. Because if you have a database where your biometrics are stored to identify yourself on multiple places, if this is now a gasoline station or a supermarket or a bank, somewhere needs to be a database that matches on the moment that you hand them your biometrics. The second problem is the time to respond, because the more people are on that database, the more it needs to go to a random of identification of your fingerprint through the database that's there. Automatically, if you're going to put more people in there, you have the risk of false acceptance. So you have to accept a certain false acceptance rate. And another point was, you need to deploy hardware. So if you want to have a global situation where just with your biometrics you can identify yourself, that means you need to deploy everywhere hardware. Now you can understand, if you start a new venture and you want to create a new way of access, of identification, and it starts with deploying hardware everywhere, that's almost an undoable mission. Especially if you look at how our consumer behavior is now, and taking in consideration that these consumers, and I will elaborate a bit more later on, that these consumers have now for the first time in history 24 hours a mobile device with them that's not further than 2 meters away. So for the first time in marketing and in sales and in electronics, we have a hardware device called our mobile phone, not more than 2 meters away, 24 hours a day. So, first coming back and presenting the risks of a central matching base. Because Also now with the new legislations, yeah, and although you create a matching algorithm that's end-to-end encrypted, still having one central base that you need to match someone's biometrics would give an enormous amount of privacy problems, but also, do you want to take that risk? Do you want to take the risk that you need to have someone's biometrics within a central database? So of course, the answer is no. So we started thinking, okay, if all those previous points are game stoppers for us to continue our quest for a global solution, what is then that global solution? So we started analyzing within the market the needs of the consumers, the wishes of the consumers, but also what are the risks, what are the legislations, what is the way of market penetration. But most important, it needs to be simple, it needs to be easy, it needs to be fast, and it needs to be secure. So we started to analyze all these points and searching all the ingredients that were needed for our development department. So, first of all, if you know then the market, if you know the needs, then you need to know also what do I need to solve. And the biggest problem we have at the moment in online world, in mobile world, in the world of internet, yeah, is the breach of large-scale data. We see it more and more because more and more we are online. We have seen here presentations of many different type of companies where data is getting stored. More and more data is getting stored. But if data gets stored, it's also vulnerable for attacks, that someone else wants to have that data, steals that data. So the large scale of data breaches is a serious, serious problem for the growth of our internet world. The second thing is identity theft and fraud. Now, the average percentage in the world is between 5 and 6%. And identity theft, or if you're a victim of fraud, it doesn't say anything to you until the moment that it happens to you. Because the worst thing with ID fraud and theft is that if you rob a bank, justice needs to prove that you are the bank robber. They need to present the evidence that it is you who has robbed the bank. But if your identity gets stolen and it gets misused and they ask loans or they open a company or they get a mortgage or whatever, you need to prove you are the person that need to be able to prove that it wasn't you. And that's for most people, that's almost an impossible task. And if you now see that the average percentage of population is between 5 and 6%, to give you an idea of numbers, just in England, the average cost of ID fraud is £7,400 per inhabitant of England. That's more than the average cost of their healthcare. So just to imagine the impact it has on society. Here I show you an overview of the increase of the amount of data that gets stolen. And it's very simple, because more data we store, the more access points we create, the more possibilities that we have for data breaches. ID fraud, just in the US, 16.7 million people, their IDs got hacked in 2017. 16.7 million people, their IDs were stolen. 16.7 million people, they had a financial loss because of ID fraud. So it's a serious, serious problem. So, what's the cause of this problem? What causes ID fraud? They steal sensible information. What is sensible information? If you go into a hotel, it happened to me last night, they ask your passport, they want to make a copy of your passport. If you're not you don't know anything about ID fraud, you think, okay, no problem, that's just a copy. But there it starts the accumulation of your ID information. If they make a copy of your passport, they have already more information than you think. And for someone with bad intention, that's a serious problem. So never let someone make a copy of your passport. So sensitive information. What is sensitive information? It can be your username and password. It can be a copy of your passport. It can be your credit card details. It can be your address, where you have had your education. We forget nowadays, we share very simple information on Facebook. Where we are, what we are doing, who we like, where we eat. That's all information that can create an identity. So sensitive information. If you have sensitive information, if you have information from someone, and it is allowed into a system that two identities with the same information can exist, yeah, then you have a potential problem in which ID fraud can happen. So the cause of the problem is that someone has information from you and that he can misuse that information he can copy you online. He can copy you by presenting this information as being you. What's now the current way of identification? In all those systems we see out there, how to identify a person. And it's right away also the cause of many of these ID breaches. You need to present information from you, and on that location, they need to have information from you. They need to have data from you. And on that moment that you present information, that can be biometrics, that can be your fingerprint, that can be your voice, that can be your facial recognition, it can be your username and password. Any information from you, you need to present that on a situation, online or physically. Then they match this information, and after this information is matched, your ID gets confirmed. What's the problem with this? The problem is it's unscalable. Because if you want to scale it, it means that if I want to present myself on many locations, or online shops, or banks, or car rental companies, or hotel booking, you name it, and I want to present myself, I want to log in, they need to keep that information from me to match my identity. So that makes, for you as an individual, a very unsecured way of matching your identity, or giving your identity, or getting access. So, taking that in perspective, how the growth is of the biometric market, how we get accustomed with biometric market. We think it's almost normal that we enroll ourselves on our mobile phone, that we give Apple our face, that we give Android our fingerprints. But not only there, even going to a gym or to a hospital, or many situations where they say, okay, put your fingerprint, or go to the US, or go to Asia. You don't enter the country without delivering your biometrics. So no one thinks anything about it, because what can they do with it? But on the moment that someone has your biometric data, and he stores that, and someone else, just based on your biometric data, accepts that as an entrance, means that someone can impersonate you with your biometric data. Now the problem is, your biometric data you cannot change. You cannot change your face, you cannot change your fingerprint, your username and password you can change, if you know that it's been compromised. But your biometric data, you can never change anymore. So actually, your identity is already lost when you give anywhere your biometric data, and we will have a system that accepts just that biometric data as an access protocol. That's why just biometrics can never be 100% access protocol. Although the biometrics is 100% presentation of you, it can never be accepted to be secure as an access protocol, because it can be imitated by someone else. And here you see the growth of it. I mean, in the year, you see the increasing line, and you see how in 2024 the growth of biometrics will be in our society. Just look at the biometrics on our mobile devices. The increase of that. It's almost impossible to buy a smart device without any biometrics. So it just shows also all the sectors in the finance, retail, healthcare, travel, where all these biometrics are being deployed and being used. And we have a growing problem without we even know it. The growth of smartphones. I mean, it's almost incredible to imagine that we have now in 2018 4.57 billion smartphones out there on the planet. You sometimes wonder that there are still people with hunger. Now, having all those phones out there, what's the problem? Why can't they just be a biometric identification device? Well, because the mobile phone has the biometrics. Very simple. A mobile phone is not made on itself as a security device. A manufacturer of a mobile phone wants to create a device for you as a user that's handy, you can play with it. It's more important to have a talking emoji than to having a high security device. Even high security devices, they were proven to be hacked in Las Vegas last year. In 8.7 minutes, the most secure phone was hacked. But also friendly hacking, because you can add a family member, your girlfriend, your wife, on your mobile phone with her biometrics, with your consent. So that makes it also that the device is never a fully 100% secure device to give someone access. But what would be the ideal situation for a consumer? The ideal situation is that we're all looking for a frictionless access. We're looking for something that gives me access everywhere without going through a lot of steps, filling in forms, giving consents, giving my ID, giving a copy. I want something that is easy, frictionless, quick. It needs to be versatile. It needs to be something I can use everywhere, because the problem is also how many apps do we have on our mobile phones? I think that the average has something of 35 mobile apps on his phone. So if you want to open your door, you need to go through 35 apps to find the door opener. It's also not the way you're looking for. We want something that stops leaving a trail of our identity. So no more need to give copies, no more need to give proof of my identity. And we're looking for something that's secure. So this is the ideal situation. Frictionless, versatile, stop leaving a trail of my identity, and a high level of security. These are the ingredients that a consumer out of our tests is looking for. So that was also right away our goal. That was our target, to create something with all these ingredients and making not just for one sector, one product market combination, but making one solution for all. So we created with Biocryptology in the last 9 years, and all these experiences, all those mistakes that we have made, all those tests that we have made in various countries, our learning curves with biometrics, the dependence of biometrics, the central databases, the needs of consumers, the safety, the regulations, GDPR, KYC, all the new legislations that are coming on the market. So our answer to that was creating one application to create something where we don't need to store any of your information, something that gives 100% privacy back to you as an individual, because the consumers realize now also they don't want to be track and traced. I don't want that someone makes a profile of me where I visit which website, if I'm looking for something to grow hair, or if I have a lot of problems with headaches. I don't want that a Facebook or a Google or whoever guides me to that website is profiling me and puts an etiquette on me, what type of person I am, to confirm my identity, but also invades my privacy. So to create something that a double identity is not possible, but also not profiling that identity and giving 100% security. Plus, through the architecture that we have created, and because we used biometrics just as a part of the key in creating an architecture, we could again create a central database. A central database that uses biometrics just as a part, as a code, in combination with hardware, in communication with a central database, creating again a very secure solution for all. So one device, one profile for all online and offline access. So asked was that, can you present something what it has to do with payments? How do you do that in mobile payments? So in the payment world, we know that there's a big problem with phishing. False websites that try to create retrieve your payment information, your bank information, your PayPal information, anything that they can accumulate information from you and use it on a second time. So eliminating phishing. The second thing is creating an alertness of all those false websites are out there. So what we are doing now through our technology, we can recognize if it's an original website or if it's an imitated website. So we can protect our clients that they will never enter a duplication website. And only if the client has its biometrics, he can have access to this platform. Yeah? So only the biometrics can execute a transaction, a payment confirmation. So we have now the PSD2 legislation coming in May next year. That means that any financial transaction out there need to be confirmed by the person. So he needs to give consent, not just having access, not just putting into the payment details, but also receive the information back and confirm with 100% his identity that he agrees with this transaction. So, what did we accomplish with that? No more usernames and passwords. No more codes need to be sent to clients' confirmations. The client controls completely who has his information following the GDPR legislations. And even a client can identify himself on an older device. This is all needed, as I just said before, for all the new compliance rules out there. And we have the GDPR, the KYC, the PSD2. We have the anti-money laundering clause starting next year. We need to have a third dimension of authentication. So going through all those processes, we created that in one application in combination with your app, with your mobile phone, and your biometrics. So not just depending on your biometrics. But if you create a situation for online, you want to create also a solution for physical access. So within our quest, we wanted to make a 360 solution. We wanted to make something that with one enrollment procedure, with one-time registration, I cannot just access my e-commerce site, my bank, or my cloud environment, or my gaming environment, or my entertainment environment, but I also want something that opens the door of my house, or opens the door of my office, or give me access to company cloud information. So we created also physical hardware devices that communicates with our app. And if we wanted to go until military level of security, we created our own hardware device based on your fingerprints, our UPD. So, having said this, with all the experiences, with all the lessons learned, with all the different technologies combined, we created now with one enrollment procedure based on my biometrics, together with an application and an infrastructure and a central database. I created a one-time identification portal for all my online banking, shopping, email security, any place where online I need to present my identity or I need to present physically or grant access. Thank you very much. This was my presentation. I hope it was a bit interesting. If there's anyone who has any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Well, questions? Seems not.
Was so simple?
Yeah, that's what it seems. Yeah, simple is always good. It was pretty understandable, so
Okay.
thank you. Thank you very much. So.